Hi, and welcome to the 2023 Cat and Tonic webinar, where we delve into the mind of the B2B marketer. We're very excited about this. We're really wanting to help B2B marketing organizations differentiate for success, improve their marketing in whatever way they can. I'm Megan Devine. I am the CEO and owner of Cat and Tonic, and we are an agency that specializes in intelligent creative. And I'm here with Susan Beyer, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Susan.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Megan. Hi, everyone. So I own a research firm that helps agencies like Cat and Tonic get some insight into how people are feeling about a particular topic. And this study is really interesting to me because it's something I think as marketers we all have to deal with. How do we face our community? How do we face our prospects and our clients? And how do we make decisions about how to do that effectively? So let's dive into what we did, Megan.
Sounds good, Susan. So as a bit of an introduction, we were looking back at the last few years and talking about how crazy the marketplace has been and the changes in business and marketing and all of that. And my clients and I were, and all of us at Cat and Tonic were really curious about how it's changed the way B2B marketers are doing their business and marketing strategies. So particularly interested in how are they differentiating their businesses? What are the most successful strategies in getting people to buy? And how to use data to inform marketing and make it more successful, and also, make their brand more resonant. So that's where we came to Susan then and commissioned this research.
You bet. So great questions to ask. And as I said, I just love those questions. What we did was we built a custom online survey for you. It took about 15 minutes to complete. And we talked to 168 respondents who completed the survey. We've got over 24 industries represented here. And that 168 actually, from a statistical standpoint, gives us a really solid understanding of what's going on with statistical reliability. That gives us about 7.5 percentage points plus or minus margin of error at a 95% confidence level. So what a statistician would tell you is that we've tasted enough of the soup to know what's in the whole pot. So this is good, reliable data, quantitative data for all of you out there. It's not a focus group. It's not 8 people around a conference table. So we've got a lot of really solid information to share, which I think is just fascinating. So let's dive in.
Excellent idea. Let's go. So as we're going through this, think a little bit about how you compare. Where do you fit into the whole continuum?
So this approach was, as I said, it was a quantitative survey. So we have a lot of information about these people and their organizations. As you can see here, we've got gender, we've got age, we've got a ton of information you're going to see about company size and what they spend and what level people are at, et cetera. You can see lots of managers or senior managers. We've got both sales and marketing folks in this study. A big range of company sizes and marketing spends. So basically, if you're watching this, you're in here somewhere. You're marketing.
That's true.
Really, regardless of where your organization sort of sits on these scales, we've got a really nice range of folks in here and some interesting insights, I think, as to whether any of this stuff matters in terms of how people are thinking about the questions that you wanted to ask, Megan.
Right, exactly. So, and I found it was quite interesting that it was really across the board, tiny places to giant corporations. So that was kind of fun for me because it really is the range of which we have delved into B2B marketing with our clients. So interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't surprise you at all.
No.
And for those of you watching this, just so you know, like we're going to go through sort of some very high level stuff today, some key points that we found in the research, but this is a very big study. There's a ton of data, and Megan and her team have for you an interactive data visualization that you could look at yourself and go play and see what the data looks like. So from a company standpoint, we sort of saw size, but we also wanted to dig into what are they selling. 100% of these companies are B2B companies, and half of them are selling both products and services. Some products only, some services only, but the bulk of them are selling both. Half of them sell both B2B and B2C, and 14% are also selling to government entities. And in terms of who's granting final approval for sort of marketing initiatives and tools and those kinds of things, we really see a range here, Megan, and probably to some degree, it's a function of how your organization works and maybe how big your teams are. But we've got some people where it's the owner or the founder, which is more likely in smaller organizations, all the way down to manager level in marketing, director. 41% of the people in the study weren't actually sure who's going to make the final decision, because sometimes it changes, right, Megan?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I also think that there might be two explanations for that. One is that there's a little bit of a disconnect. Maybe it goes back and forth between sales and marketing or something. And, I don't know who made the decision this time. The other thing is it might be a very large organization where they've got lots of people doing many different things and probably different decision makers. So
yeah, so it's just somewhere up the food chain for
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so the basis of our research, Megan, is around attitudinal segmentation. So we're all used to seeing studies that group people based on their generation or the size of their company or company revenue or whatever. And in reality, that's not always very helpful for marketing. Nobody wants to get an email that says, hello, woman 25 to 49. That's not very relevant. So our research really works to understand quantitatively how different groups within this audience are thinking about something. And the way we approach this work is basically mathematical. We're asking stuff and not sort of predetermining the buckets ahead of time or even how many we're going to have, but the responses in the survey to how people think about various things basically give us segments of them. And the segments are defined based on people who have a set of attitudes in common with each other. So it's not just how they feel about one thing or two things. I think we put 40 different attitudes in front of these folks that they had to rate.
Yeah, it was a lot.
And the analysis gave us 4 different types of respondents in the survey. So we call them skeptics, believers, controllers, or nurturers. We're going to go through each one of those. And you can see the skeptics are the largest group at 30%. And then the other 3 have about 70% between them, pretty evenly. So let's dive in to the skeptics. And as you're watching this, think about which one of these may be you or someone else who works in your organization. So let's start with the skeptics. This is the biggest group at 30%. So these folks are really tactical, both marketers and salespeople. Their perspective on marketing is that it's less important than sales efforts. You use it when you need it, if you've got something big going on. And they really feel like a lot of their clients are more concerned about pricing than they are about differentiation or what your marketing looks like. It's interesting, these folks skew a little younger compared to the other segments. 58% of these folks are under 40. Now we have them in all age groups, as you're going to see, but they do lean a little bit younger. So very sort of, let's just get right to the point. Marketing is a little fluffy. Let's talk price. Let's talk details. Let's get down to business.
Right.
They have some very strong beliefs, these folks. One of them that I found really striking, Megan, was that sales and marketing are essentially the same thing.
Right.
So there's sort of and they're both marketing and salespeople. So it's not just a function of salespeople not getting marketing. It's really that in their organizations and the way they were trained or whatever, they just don't see a big difference between those two responsibilities.
And I think I think that speaks to some of the tactical approach too. It's like we're going to accomplish this through instead of more strategic stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I know you see that in your work sometimes, for sure. And I've
Yeah,
worked with people from
exactly.
that perspective. 30% of these people do not feel that their marketing really generates a return on investment, and they're not likely to pursue it if they can't get a guaranteed return on it. So that makes them a little gun shy with respect to some marketing initiatives. They basically say, look, if I know the profile of the buyer, and I know what products and services they're looking at, I have everything I need to convert them to a customer. At the same time, though, they also say that their organization is kind of out of touch generally with what their customers want and need. They say that younger buyers are significantly more challenging to build relationships with, so they kind of have a hard time connecting, which is interesting because this group tends to be a little bit younger.
Right.
So that isn't what I expected to see. I expected for
Me
old
neither.
people to be saying that, and it's and they do say that for their organization, just waiting for buyers to reach out to them isn't helping them from a sales standpoint, because they're basically sitting around until somebody approaches them and says, I want such and such a product. What's it gonna cost me?
Right.
So they do recognize some of those challenges.
Mhm.
Here are some quotes from some of the folks in the actual survey. I do feel we should engage our audience a bit more, ask what kind of content they want to see, and engage with a younger audience as well. And there needs to be more communication between marketing and the salespeople in the field to understand customer needs better. So they do recognize some opportunities with their organizations, for sure.
Yeah, I really felt like this group was striving to do better.
Yep, for sure. Okay. Second group, believers. And I think this group was about 25%. Man, these folks are killing it. Enthusiastic marketers. They are doing a lot of marketing. Yes. Love for you. So they're not only doing a lot, they're trying a lot. And they're sort of on a continuous improvement program to use data just to better understand their audience, to better differentiate from others. It's just something that they really incorporate into what they're doing every day. So quotes here, we need to establish ourselves as the most creative and advanced technological brand in our field. We should keep utilizing the latest research and data to understand the evolving marketplace better. So they're really engaged ongoing in this effort to better understand in any way they can the people that they're serving, and to differentiate themselves as a provider from maybe competitors who aren't doing that kind of work.
Exactly. And also use the tools, whatever tools are available. These people are like, okay, let me try this.
Yeah, I love that. Beliefs for this group. Branding is foundational to their organization's marketing efforts. So these folks do not think branding as a dip in when you need it sort of initiative. This is, they really have deeply held beliefs about the power of strategic marketing and branding. They say a well-articulated brand improves return on investment for their organization. So I know a lot of people think of branding or marketing as a cost center. These folks really see it as a ROI builder, as a return builder.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, me too. They say it's important to use real customer data and research to understand direct buyers. Detailed information about products and services is important when you're doing marketing in their space, B2B. And every single marketing initiative should include a lead generation component. Actually building in real opportunities and value that make the person who's seeing that work want to connect with you and get more help from you, so that you can sort of nurture them in your sales funnel.
Right, exactly, at all levels.
Yeah. Okay, controllers. These folks are all in. They feel really good about their marketing and sales. They do tend to skew a little bit to the sales side. And while we see them again at all roles across all organization sizes, this group does tend more likely to be an owner or top exec at a smaller company. So think sort of senior leadership level in maybe a smaller organization a lot of the time, they are a little less tech savvy than some of the other segments about the kinds of tools that are available to them from a marketing standpoint, but they're doing really well. We're on track for a record year. Referrals are yielding the most new customers for 60 years. Like, what they are doing is absolutely working, and they are rightly proud of themselves for that.
Yeah, they're a machine. They
Yeah.
figured out their business, what they need to do.
And they're just doing it. Absolutely right. Beliefs. So they say it's essential to adjust your sales approach based on the age of the buyers at distributors or dealers. So one of the things that's working for them is they're tweaking their approach, whether they know they're going to be talking to a younger buyer or an older buyer, which I found kind of interesting.
So I would agree with that. At all organizations, younger people want a different way of connecting. They want to be able to do research, and they want to be able to have their own track, essentially.
Yeah.
So you do need to think about that.
They do have some different expectations, I think, just based on when they came up in the business. Yeah. Differentiating from competitors and creating engaging content is important. So these folks know that those two things, looking different than everybody else in their space and having content that is engaging with their customers and prospects, is important. And that's part of what they're doing. Knowing the problems to solve for their direct customers, as well as understanding why they make the decisions that they do.
Yes.
So important here. And I think it's really
So
interesting
important
that this is a group that is not as tech savvy and yet is still prioritizing this understanding and getting it, maybe getting it in a different way, but they're getting it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that building relationships speaks to that.
Yeah.
And, they have found a way to, truly understand and build the relationship with the eye on the audience, as opposed to what we want to say. What do they want to hear? What do they need?
Right. And I love that perspective. So just because they're a little more rubber to the road types of folks, and maybe not using all these tools, doesn't mean they haven't got this figured out. I love that about them. Nurturers. I love nurturers. They are all about relationship building. They're more likely to be in sales than believers are. They skew a little bit older. 61% of these folks are 50 or older. There are younger folks in here too, but they do tend a little bit older. These folks really want their organization to focus time and resources on nurturing the prospects who are going to buy directly from them. And when we say nurture, we need to visit prospective clients to get ideas from them. We need more engaging and modern content. They're really focused on the relationship with an individual prospect. And that's where they want their organization working.
Yeah.
They say relationship is foundational to effective sales. Engaging those who might buy directly, using really deep insights into the problems, needs, challenges, and emotions that they have is powerful, and differentiating from the competition is important. They also say that it would be a mistake to assume that their direct buyers really understand their organization's offerings very well. So they may be nurturing the relationship and getting a deep understanding of their prospects, but they also recognize that their organization may not be doing as well as it could be to really helping those prospects understand what they've got to offer in terms of products and services.
As compared to the controllers, they probably don't have that engaging content, or they're missing one of the elements that would make them truly sing with their marketing.
Yep, for sure. So if you look at this, if you look at these demographics through this lens of 4 different segments, there's some interesting things that pop up. First of all, there is no gender difference between these segments. So if you're thinking out there, as I know you might be, oh, the new nurturers are probably more likely to be women, or whatever, that's not true. That's not true. Leadership, we do see a difference. 62% of those controllers are in a leadership role at their organization. as we talked about. And there are differences in marketing. The nurturers are much less likely to be in marketing than any of the other segments. And it's actually the believers who are really sort of the more likely to be in a marketing specific role. Age is across the board, but if you look at the column that says 30 to 39 and you see that big purple bar, that's the skeptics, right? So that's that lean that we talked about being under 40 with that group. And as you look at the 60 to 69 bar, you see a little bit of growth there on the part of the nurturers relative to sort of the younger age group. So again, a little bit of a lean. And then nurturers are also more likely to have been in their role longer, over 20 years for a third of them. Relative to the skeptics, again, a little bit on the younger side for the skeptics, and only 8% of them have been in their role that long. So we do see some leans here or there, but we can also see everybody across all of those characteristics from each segment. So let's talk about this, and then I want you sort of your feedback on this overall view of things, Megan.
Yeah.
So, we talked about things that make them different, but there are some things that are really consistent across all of these segments. 94% say it is extremely or very important to understand the end user, whether they're the buyer or not, the end user of their products and services. That's a big, big number for sure. 57% say sustainability is a core feature of their product and service. And I'm pretty sure we would not have seen a number like that 10 years ago. No,
definitely not.
80% say the organization is working to differentiate itself from competitors. Yay for that. And 76% say their creative assets are very or extremely important in that effort to differentiate from competitors. So when you look at all of this, Megan, and look across this sort of landscape of different sizes of organizations, different roles for people, these four very distinct and different attitudinal perspectives on sales and marketing, and then sort of some of the things that's consistent for you. How does this align with the kind of folks that you're working with day in and day out at cat&tonic?
Good question. Thank you. I think that really one of the things that is interesting to me, and I think consistent, is that B2B marketing is very complex.
Yeah.
And anybody who goes into it thinking it's a one-trick pony or an easy, you've got one audience that you got to serve, that's just not the case. So what I really love to hear is that people are understanding the importance of understanding the end user for their distributors, for their e-commerce, for all of these different areas, and for sales, because in the end, if the end users aren't happy, nobody's happy.
Right.
The sustainability part is something that we are definitely hearing more and more about as an important part of core value for companies. In terms of differentiation, I think most people that we work with really understand that they need to differentiate, but we'll talk about this a little bit differently because we dig into differentiation a little later in this. But it's not easy. You're so close to your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
How do you differentiate your own stuff because you love it all?
Yeah.
And then the creative is definitely in line with what we see. All of our clients are very engaged with creating the best creative and branding. We do a lot of messaging work where we're tweaking the messaging to make it more differentiated or bring companies up to that next level. So
yeah, well, creative is interesting, I think, as an element of differentiation, only because it's one of the things that people can see about you without actually having direct contact with you.
Right.
I mean, it's great to feel like your sales process is really, really different, and your salespeople are the best in the world, or but if before somebody knows you, they don't know that. So creative is the way that you express it before, and we know people are lurking and looking long before they contact us about buying anything. So that's an important element.
And creative does two things. It's more memorable. So if you have, if you have a good creative brand, people remember that. If you think about, Nike and Coca-Cola and some of those brands, they are very consistent with their color and their creative and all of that. But also it helps people understand content better. If you have good creative, if you have messaging that is presented well and easy to read and hits a mark, you're going to have more success.
Yeah, visuals are powerful, aren't they? And
they are.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Awesome. So let's look at some specific attitudes that have a lot of agreement. So this is the percentage of respondents in our survey that agreed very strongly with these statements. So we gave them a rating scale of 1 to 6, where 6 was I agree completely. And these are the percentage that picked a 5 or a 6 across all segments. Relationship building is the foundation of effective sales. My organization excels at building relationships with those who buy directly from us, 76%. So people feeling generally good about that. The best way to appeal to those who might buy directly from us is to differentiate ourselves from others, the point that you were making. And researching those who might buy directly from us is essential to successful marketing. As a researcher, I love that big 70 number. That's awesome. Successful organizations use data to inform marketing initiatives. And that's not just research, right? That's any kind of metrics data or ad data or whatever kind of stuff that you're getting, market information.
Right. As well as, personal values, emotional cues, personal values, psychological drivers.
There's so much cool stuff you can get out there now that didn't exist 20 years ago, for sure.
Yeah.
My organization is clear on the problems we solve for those who buy directly for us. 70% strongly agreeing. Yay for that.
That's huge.
Organizations with well-articulated brand positioning achieve a better return on their marketing. 68%. Great. Brand development is foundational to my organization's marketing efforts, and marketing functions best when it's based on real data about what users want and need. So a lot of really positive stuff coming out of the respondents in this study, for sure.
Agreed.
So let's talk about differentiation a little bit. Can you sort of give us your perspective on sort of this side of the house with respect to what you saw?
Absolutely. Well, what I'd love to hear is that the respondents most often agree that increased brand loyalty, increased value perception, and stronger brand recognition come from differentiation. So it's really key. And I think most of the segments agreed with that, except maybe the skeptics. They're, they have a segment of them who just don't see differentiating as a thing.
They don't see it like this. Yeah.
Right. What I found interesting is that only 27% of respondents said their organization is excellent at differentiating itself. And also 62% feel they differentiate through customer service, which I think those two are related.
You can say differentiation on customer service isn't real differentiation.
Isn't real differentiation,
I know that is your point of view for you.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
Because, everybody's working at it. They're working at it. They have a plan.
So many know what it can deliver. Like there's a lot of embracing of that. I was surprised at that 27% number too, at the percentage who know how important it is, who know the impact it can have. And still only 27% say they're really good at it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is part of the reason anyway. Obviously, there are all kinds of things that go into that sort of thing, but customer service as a category is a requirement for a successful business. It's not a differentiator. And we hear a lot of companies going, well, it's our people that set us apart. It's our customer service that set us apart. And I get that. I mean, I feel that way about Cat and Tonic, but I can't go out there because every other marketing agency says the same
It's the
thing.
same thing.
You know,
Yeah.
they're all saying their people are the best, and they're, you
Yeah,
know,
it's kind of table stakes, isn't it?
it really is. It really is.
And I guess the risk is if you think that's where the magic happens, you may not be focusing on the other things that could actually have a bigger impact on differentiating your organization.
Exactly.
It's
So
not that you want to slide on customer service, but if you put all your differentiation hopes on it, you may be avoiding, I guess, some other things that could actually be more effective on that particular front.
yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's rocket science. I mean, I think you can look at your customer service and then go deeper into it and go, what is the problem that you solve for your customers that's unique? What, you know,
Yeah.
we had one client that we helped tweak their brand, and they were a really great printer, and their whole their brochures, their website, all of it was focused on print machines. And as a long-term print buyer, nobody cares about your print machines. You know, I'm sorry, I know they're
They
expensive.
don't want to know how
that,
the sausage is made.
yeah, exactly. Nobody knows. Yeah, well, some people do. But when we got them to say, well, what we really do is we take the same machines and we do innovative things with them. Now you're talking, right? Now you're saying something to somebody who's going to come in with a unique situation and need help tweaking it. And, you know, this is the company that's going to help you get there. So that's an idea of how different.
Because it's based on the outcome, the benefit, as opposed to how it's, what equipment you're using or what your, you know, processes or whatever to get there.
Exactly.
76% say their creative assets are very or extremely important in differentiating from competitors. 77 say they're very or extremely effective in highlighting their differentiation. And 79% say brand positioning or voice and tone development are very valuable for their organization. So these folks aren't dismissing the value of creative assets at all in terms of this process. Okay.
And I think that if you are a B2B marketer and you haven't thought about your brand, or you haven't thought about you know, the creative that you're putting out there, I have seen some websites that they look like they're 20 years old. Yeah. And the company is successful, but I just think, you know, how much farther along could you be if you were speaking to the people as you would speak to them today? If you presented your brand as this modern brand that I know it to be, but it doesn't show up in your website. So it's a lot of that sort of
dealing with a little bit of a younger buyer now. I mean, if your website's been the same for 20 years, there are people that are at your distributors or, you know, whatever, that are buying your stuff, that, you know, the stuff you're showing them was when they were 4.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be off-putting. They're going to make fun of it. You know, it's just the way it is, right? With generational change, and there's a big one happening. Yeah. So people who are not paying attention to that in their differentiation are going to be left a little bit behind, or they're going to have more struggles.
Yep. Interesting. You know, back to sort of who these people are, we've got a huge range of budgets in here, as you can see, from less than 25K to 10 million or more. 54% of the skeptics and the believers have bigger budgets over $1 million. So that sort of sets them apart a little bit.
It does. And I loved that the skeptics had big budgets, because the overall feeling was that skeptics were maybe not, you know, believing in marketing. But I think they need to find a way to elevate some of their strategies from the tactical approach to look at it more from 10,000 feet and see what else they can do to support those tactics. And they're going to be kicking butt.
They're spending a lot of money, but it's at a really tactical level. So they're maybe missing a strategic component that could help them tie everything together and better differentiate them from their
Exactly.
competitors and support their sales efforts, which they know are important.
Which is essentially where the believers are.
Yeah.
So
Right.
skeptics may be on their way to, at least some of them may be on their way to being believers in their career. I'm sure that there are different perspectives at different ages, but as you said, these are all across the board in age.
Right.
So
maybe you just sometimes need a little bit of outside perspective because you're in the bottle and having trouble seeing the label.
yeah. True. I love that. I might steal that from you.
I think I stole that from somebody else. So to whoever that's from, thank you very much. In terms of, so we asked them what percentage of their total budget they're spending on marketing. And again, a big range. So nurturers, that group that's really about sort of those personal relationships, are more likely to spend less than 5% of their organization's total budget on marketing. 42% of that group said that. In the meantime, the believers, 25% of them spend more than a quarter of their total budget on marketing. So a real diversity in terms of, you can see it, you can see the priority reflected in the percentage of their budget that they have to work with that they're actually devoting towards marketing efforts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The norm, 30% of all the groups spent between 6 and 10% of their budget on marketing. Some spent more, some spent less, but I think that aligns pretty well with what Deloitte says about B2B marketers, 6 to 7% on average.
Yeah. And I felt like that was pretty much what I would have expected. I also thought it was interesting that 18% are in the 16 to 20%.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a pretty significant chunk of people who believe.
Basically like 3 times what the average is.
Right, exactly.
Budget. Yeah.
So you gotta believe that they've figured it out, they've got something going.
Right. And if you go to the executive, if you go to the Cat and Tonic website and you'll see the visualization there, you can actually look at these answers for each of the segments, and you can look at it for different company sizes and sort of really dig in and sort of see maybe where your organization is sitting on some of these metrics.
Yeah. Yes, it's an embarrassment of riches in there.
It's a fire hose of information. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh man, knowing your buyers and end users. So this is really interesting for me. The majority of these respondents say that their organization usually or always is using data of some kind, right? So social media monitoring or AI or whatever they're doing to help develop their language, imagery, content, messaging that's part of their marketing story. You can see the percentages here that say that data about their buyers extremely or very important. That's 73% on the left there. And then about end users, even higher on the right. So certainly this population is prioritizing insights, actual data-based insights about both of those groups, and saying they are using that in their marketing development. So that's great news.
It is great news. And I love that. I mean, that's the way you really get results, is by understanding the needs and addressing them. So I was really, really glad to hear this.
Yeah, for sure. And tools, will tools like AI or research or tech actually help your creative resonate more effectively in a B2B environment? So we had a lot of people agree very strongly with this. The skeptics most likely to say that is where their creative can benefit in terms of stuff. They really like that idea of using sort of some of this newer technology to help their creative resonate, again, with a group that particular segment said, we got a lot of these younger people we have to deal with, and we may not be doing the best job at doing that. So that group in particular is really embracing some of these new technologies as a way to reach people with better creative.
And that's really smart.
Yeah, I love that.
I love it too. And also makes it easier to speak to the emotions of a buying decision.
I know you have a point of view on that at Cat and Tonic. Why don't you share it with us?
Yeah, so it's making decisions. You think people make decisions based on data, or, if I have all this information in front of me, but there's a really primal and strong emotional part of making a decision. Everybody has it.
Yeah,
It's
just
a
wired
part
into
of
our
our
brains, isn't it?
it's
Yeah,
it's a part of our brains. We've found is that you may think that you're giving people what they need, but if you understand that they want to be seen as experts, or they want to be treated in a certain way, and you speak to them that way, it's going to hit home better.
yeah. There's a lot of science behind the sort of emotional things that connect people to a decision that they're considering about making and persuade them to make it.
Yeah, and if you can connect in that way, all of your marketing is more successful. It gets people to engage and take an action.
Yeah, but it
which is
also means you
all
have to really understand those things to
Yes.
be able to do that effectively.
Well, as you said earlier in this, you're not going to say, "Dear woman, 25 to 35."
So
No, it's-
having the data is good so that you can produce emotionally resonant messaging. It's not about throwing the data in front of people and saying 77% of women like you do this. It's really about understanding something deeper about those buyers.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, really cool. And wow, a continual process. So a lot of the respondents in this study said they are doing some kind of audience research every quarter, and some of them monthly or weekly. So that monthly or weekly is unlikely to be a big research study, but it's more likely to be social media monitoring, conversion tracking, for ads, for, some of that kind of stuff, some of those metrics that you can get on a regular basis, even just like sort of how many likes are your posts getting, or how many people have read your blog post, or some of those things that we can get on a basically real-time basis these days.
Yeah, I mean, tracking your KPIs, making sure that they're where you want them to be, making tweaks to your marketing to, improve places where they seem to be falling short, that sort of thing. I think again, really smart.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, most respondents say the best ROI they've had on a marketing initiative was around 50%. We have 31% who have seen it much higher than that, and 53% who've seen it lower than that. So what do you think about that number?
I found that to be really interesting. If you're not getting ROI on your marketing, I think you're probably needing to go back and look at some of the basics.
Yeah.
Because marketing should be an investment. You should be getting a return. You should be able to, get more customers, or sell more things, or whatever your goal is. Unless those goals are not to actually sell something. And I think there are a lot of people who do marketing but don't ask. They don't have an ask. They don't have a CTA. So they might be putting it out there, but they're not telling people what to do. And sometimes that is just not going to get you. It'll get you some awareness, but it won't get you a specific ROI.
Yeah, and it's a sizable investment not to be getting the full ROI on it. For sure.
Yes.
And we see in that 31%, we know there are people who do get high ROI if they're marketing. So it doesn't have to just be a cost center. If you're doing it right, you should expect it to be delivering a return for you.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Highest ROI, social media, market research, yay for that, email marketing, brand development, content strategy. So a lot of the things that brands are using can absolutely deliver high levels of a return for respondents if they're doing them right.
Yeah, and we do a lot of video work here.
Oh yeah,
it's
27%.
It's really that's a really great thing for niche manufacturers, for somebody who has a really specific audience that where they need to understand something that's a little more sophisticated or a little more difficult to understand.
As you know, we do research across a huge range of categories, a lot of B2B work, and we are seeing YouTube up there in the top 2 or 3 resources that B2B professionals are looking to for information that helps them in their work, not just watching cat videos or whatever. But, YouTube is really, it's like the visual Google, like people are like really finding the information that they're looking for from a business perspective on YouTube. So we're telling clients, if that's not a tactic that you're using right now, in most cases, your data with B2B buyers is showing that you need to be.
Right.
And B2C consumers even more.
Right. And I would venture to say, if you're not doing competitor research, because that's a lower number. In our experience, the competitor research has really helped with the differentiation. Yeah,
it's hard to differentiate if you don't know what you're trying to differentiate against.
Right, because we'll look at 8 different competitors and they're saying the exact same thing on their website. And so it's like, okay, well, we need to really pull out a piece that shows you to be an expert in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome chart here. I know you love this chart, the importance of creative development. So 71% across the board agree that creative development, so that's visuals, messages, content, is very or extremely important to the effectiveness of their marketing efforts. So creative, really central to what people are trying to do when they spend not an insignificant amount of their budget on marketing.
Right. And I think what this speaks to is that B2B marketing is becoming much more like B2C marketing. People are understanding that they are selling to people.
I mean, they're
not selling to a company
anymore.
Right. Right. Exactly. And right. And how do you get in front of a prospective buyer at all levels of the sales funnel, or whatever it is now? It's some sort of convoluted thing. But how do you get in front of them? Yes, it's an ecosystem. That's exactly right. And how do you do that without having creative and messaging that it will speak to people? Somebody who's just starting off, somebody who needs education, somebody who needs specifics about the products or services. You need to lead them along.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Both marketing and creative priorities for the respondents in our study. Top priority, near the top of our list of priorities, a majority of our respondents in both categories say, this is really important. So if you're watching this and your organization is not thinking about it from a priority, you're in the minority. What we saw in our study. For sure. So marketing insights are not quite as prioritized. And that's sort of the data that we were talking about, like what's behind the marketing creative that we're doing. 22% say it's a top priority, another 22 near the top of the list, 26% somewhere in the middle, and a sizable percentage that it's a lot lower than that. So that's an interesting, maybe not making the connection for folks between how important that step is to do the step that they are prioritizing really highly.
Exactly. And so those companies that are not differentiating well, maybe they aren't prioritizing getting in true insights from their data to be able to, speak more relevantly to their audiences.
So maybe their creative looks good, but it's not resonating.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. Yep. Okay. Your recommendations. Okay. I know cat&tonic's an expert in this space. Tell us what you tell your clients off the back of this research.
As the business climate continues to shift, I think everybody needs to find the most effective ways to engage customers and prospects and, dealers and distributors. There's going to be maybe a bit of a narrower group to go out to. So what's effective for your business, for your audiences? Do the research, dig into the data, look for insights, and create brand differentiation, develop creative and messaging that will resonate with your audiences. And that's going to be essential to successful sales and marketing moving forward. I have no question about that. So
yeah. It's sometimes overwhelming, isn't it? With there's so many things you can do, so many platforms. I remember 15 years ago, the first how many marketing tech platforms are there came out. It was 150 and we were all like, woo. And now it's tens of thousands.
Crazy.
So it can be hard to sort of sift through what makes the most sense for your organization, your audience, what you're trying to sell. So yeah, I like that point about just really figuring out what's going to make the most sense for you from a strategic standpoint. So you don't spend money on stuff that's maybe not going to be helpful.
And it's important to look at what your business goals are, because from that standpoint, you want to make sure that your business goals are tied into your sales and marketing goals. The tactics that you use should support getting more accounts or getting into that new industry that you're trying to get into, or whatever that is. It should all go back to business goals. And I think differentiation is more important than ever. Having people understand. I saw a lot of people saying, yeah, we compete on pricing, but how long can you compete on pricing? And, we've seen a lot of competition from outside the US and it's like, even in the marketing industry, everybody's competing with us now. So you really have to be sure of yourself in terms of what problem you solve and how you solve it. And then making sure that your brand is resonant today with modern marketers. That's a key. Your brand, your creative, your messaging, all of that. And then going back and understanding what those end users need in order to help your dealers or distributors and make sure that you're solving the right problems for the end user. So sometimes it's a B2B to C kind of thought process.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It is complex. Yeah. And trying to keep the thread all together through that whole process when you have multiple audiences like dealers and distributors over here and consumers over there, or you're doing direct through your website and you've got distributor relationships. It's there could be a lot going on. Sure.
Exactly. And most of our clients have those multiple avenues that they're trying to make sure are working well and all of that. So it's not easy. It's a very complex situation, but it really helps to focus and make sure that you're solving that end user's needs.
Yeah. Well, my hope is that the folks watching this webinar sort of dig into this a little more and really trying to understand where they are and where their organization is on this spectrum of attitudes, because it'll help them maybe isolate the kinds of things that they could be working on to do better for their particular situation, right? So how can they get more information about the research and the resources and stuff that you guys are providing around it?
Well, funny you should ask. For the full data visualization, it's cat-tonic.com/B2B Research. We would love to have you follow us on social, and we're going to be slicing and dicing this information and putting up more in depth, going into a smaller portion more in depth as we go over the next few months. And then, of course, if you have any questions and you want to reach out to me, go ahead and contact us at curious@cat-tonic.com.
Love it. Well, it's been so fun talking through all this with you. Like you, I just found this a fascinating study. So I'm glad we were able to get together and sort of get your agency's perspective on what you're telling your clients to do with it. So very helpful. Thanks for having me join you, Megan.
Well, thank you for putting this together. It's a great piece of research. It's given us so much information that's I think will be helpful for our clients and for us to be better marketers, which is always the goal. There's always, you can always learn and you can always improve. So
ain't that the truth?
Yeah. So
Great.
we are looking into digging into this even more. So
Terrific.
Please join us.
All right. Wonderful. Thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye.